I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Director Snyder, would you please read our board priorities?
Absolutely, Mr. President. Priorities are the Davenport School District Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. 1, provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of all students and staff. And 2, direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Great, thank you. Director Kluhl, would you read our mission and vision statements, please?
I would, but I would like to defer to Student School Board Member Olivia Grubbs, if she has that up.
The mission statement, oh, that's loud. Enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community.
And then if you would read that vision statement too.
The vision statement, education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Right. It's always different when our student school board members read those. I like that. Thank you.
Before we continue with the meeting, I want to note a couple of minor changes. .03 is the approval of the 2015-16 budget. And the motion will be changed to read that the administration recommends the board adopt and certify the tax levy rate. I want to remove the words budget and in the motion. Second, I want to move section 8, which is the superintendent report, to immediately follow the action taken on 9.03, approval of the 2015-16 budget. All right, we've got a couple of public hearings here, and I note that there are several of you that have signed up for open forum, and I haven't looked at what you want to talk about here, but we are going to have public hearings on 2 issues also, and that offers you an opportunity to speak on these issues. So first, I'd like a motion. I've got an amendment, excuse me here. Does it require a motion and second? No. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we will now hold a public hearing on the amendment of the current 2014-15 budget as published in the Quad City Times on February 27th, 2015. Anyone wishing to speak on this issue, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Dickman.
I just wanted to clarify for the public that this is a more procedural matter now that we have more up-to-date numbers that we're making the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Action on this item will take place later in the meeting. We will now hold a public, make sure I'm here. We will now hold a public hearing on the proposed Davenport school budget for fiscal year 2015-16 as published in the Quad City Times on February 27th, 2015. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to student board reports. Superintendent Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Luke, can we start with you?
We had a dance marathon yesterday. It was our first one we've held, and it was a success. It was put on by the National Honor Society. And we also had students compete in the National History Day competition at St. Ambrose.
And at West, we have on Thursday, after we finish finals, we have a car bash, which is exactly as it sounds. We are actually taking a sledgehammer to a van in order to raise money for ovarian cancer.
And then at West, our robotics team recently last weekend won the state championships.
At North, all of our spring sports are starting up, and today, after the board meeting actually, we have both of our soccer teams that are playing in the indoor league down at the River's Edge are competing for the championship, and that would be both the team that North does with West and just our solo North team.
And then our show choir won at Fort Madison for the 8th time. We had the best band, the best vocals, and grand champs. And we also have artwork right now that is displayed at North Park, so you guys should check those out.
And if you guys all wanted to come, the game starts at 9, and then another one at 9:40.
Thank you, students. We appreciate your reports.
I love your optimism, Bennett, that we would actually be out of here by 9. I'm with you.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. We'll move on to the showcase. Superintendent Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have Sudlow Intermediate and Principal Bruce Potts will begin. We appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you. As you're aware, we'll be starting our second year with the Creative Arts Academy next fall, and there'll be a total of 108 students involved. Just as a side note to you, 8 of those students are new students to the Davenport School District. What we have done in the Creative Arts Academy is, at Sudlow, we provide their English, social studies, math and science, and physical education. In doing so, we created 2 different courses, a heritage course that is a combined English and social studies class that meets in a 2-period block, and we also combined math and science in a STEAM class that competes in a 2-period block. Mr. Elmore is our STEAM teacher. He wrote the curriculum for it, and he's here this evening, and he wants to share with you some of the elements that went into developing that curriculum and how it's been working out with those students.
Hello. My goal was to make everything that we do kind of a project-based learning. Nothing's taught in isolation. We don't teach math and then teach science and then hope they marry them together somewhere in the future. I do teach math and science, and then we have projects, some large, some small, that put both of them together and gives the students a chance to actually put their things into real life thinking. We cover all of the same goals that are covered in all the other curriculums. They take the same test, midterm and end of term assessments as all the other students. But again, everything we do is a project base. For example, one of the minor things that we did was I was trying to get the students to learn how to do research, look at government sites, find trustworthy sites, and also use some of their math skills of estimation, variables, these types of things. And so we have a little scenario called the Mystery Renters. And actually Dr. Tate was there for part of this one on one of his visits. And the students are told that they are working as a detective agency, and a landlord comes to them and says, you know, I rent one of my properties out to college students, and our agreement was there were not supposed to be more than 4 people living on the premises, but I think there are a lot more than that. I've made surprised visits, and I've never found more than 4 people there at any one time, but I've noticed that they're not always the same 4 people. And so, you know, I want you folks to figure out, are there more than 4 people living there? And so after some discussion, the landlord gives the students the utility bills, and they have to figure out, does this really work? And so they have to do research and find out, okay, what is the average water usage of people in the United States, and then in Iowa, and then in Davenport? So they have to contact Public Works Department, the water company, and try to find out what is the average per person usage in Davenport, and then put all this together and come up with a presentation that they give to the rest of the class saying, this is how many people we think actually live there. They have to show all of their work. We use our Chromebooks, and they share their results with everybody else in the class and myself, and they have to show all of their computations, where they got their information from, and then it's compared to everybody else in the class to find out, you know, how good did we really do with this? And it really helps them with their research skills. They have to defend their position. Everybody else in the class is able to question them and ask them, you know, all types of leading questions and things. And the students learn that, you know, I really need to know what I'm doing when I get up here so that when people ask me a question, I have the answer for them. And so they work on their public speaking skills, presentations, and again, their math and science as well. And by the way, the lady was being cheated. There were somewhere between 7 and 8 people living there because of the amount of water that they were using. And the students all figured this out. And so that was a good thing. Some of the major projects that we do, we're going to develop a colony on the planet Mars, which NASA is in the process of trying to do. These students that we have now will most likely be involved in that age group that will end up in that colony. They have to figure out how long is it going to take to get there. They have to figure out how much food we're going to bring, how much water we have to bring, how many plants we have to take, how we're going to scrub the air that we have to take carbon dioxide out of it, how much carbon dioxide the average person makes in a day, how much oxygen that they need per day, how many plants are we going to have to remove excess carbon dioxide, how many plants are we going to have per person to make enough oxygen to sustain life, grow enough food. They had to figure out about, you know, if we plant this many plants, how many are going to die off, and so how many extras do we need. They had to figure out a living quarter in a biosphere type operation, and they had to design, and of course they used their Chromebooks to draw them, but they had some very good ideas there. Some of the things that they would be doing, especially knowing that it's going to take 7 months to go back and forth, so it's not a quick trip. They had to figure out all the people they wanted to take, what kind of provisions they were going to need, and so on. And it was, they had to do a lot of math, a lot of complex math. They had to do a lot of the science aspect. What does the atmosphere look like? Temperature variances. How are we going to produce our electricity? Can we actually put, one group came up with the idea of putting not just solar panels on the biosphere itself, but also some temporary wind turbines outside, knowing that winds on Mars can get quite heavy. And so where would we need to put them? How tall can they be? And how many are we going to need? And so forth. They also do a project called a Green City project, where they have to develop their own city from the ground up. They're given a population of 300,000 people. They have to figure out what the city's going to look like, how we're going to provide electricity for it. They have to have an excess of 20% for the electrical needs. They have to figure out how we're going to take care of the garbage, the recycling, and they came up with some great recycling ideas that I'm going to share with the Public Works Department. They had some really, really good ideas. They have to figure out what kind of cars they're going to use, how they're going to provide busing for all of our students. They had to figure out how many students they're going to have based on the population and national averages for age group. So how many buses do we have to operate? What kind of buses are we going to have? What are they going to run on? Are they going to be electric? Are they going to be natural gas buses? And they actually had to find real vehicles that are in existence now, how much they cost, and provide all of that information. They had to come up with landfills, where the landfill is at. And we had a professor from the University of Iowa came down during the midst of this project, and he did an urban development project with them. And his comment when he left was, these are the brightest kids I've ever seen. And I want to tell you about the group of students that we have. They are a very diverse group. We have students in there that have IEPs. We have ESL students. We have very, very low social economic students, high social economic students. It covers every group that we have in the Davenport Community School District. And it works out really well. These students are learning what they need to learn. They're very enthusiastic, and we don't let any of the outside issues stop them from learning. Last week when we were doing one of our math projects, one of the students says, I just don't think I can do this. And I talked to him and I said, you know, if you couldn't do it, you wouldn't be here. And he said, so you really think that I can do this? And I said, if I didn't think you could do it, you wouldn't be here. But I know you can do this. You know you can do this. One of our IEP students, when we were doing variables last Friday, raised her hand and said, can I go up to the board and solve this? And that's the first time that she's ever volunteered. And so she went up to the board, solved it, wrote down all of the steps. And when it got done, the rest of the kids applauded and told her how wonderful that was. And after class, she said, that made me feel so good because I am really learning. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be with these students. I really do. It's a great program. And again, we cover everything that is covered by all of the other science and math classes, but we just have the opportunity to put it all together so they can actually put it into real use. So does anyone have any questions or?
Director Dickman.
I'm curious, you mentioned that some students, they'd struggle. Do the students who are more enthusiastic from the beginning, do they tend to pull along the students who are?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
And otherwise, I love everything that I just heard.
Yeah, they do a lot of
Music
peer
to my ears.
teaching and stuff, and it's not like I have to assign them or ask them to go. They look and they really help out each other.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
We still have part of the showcase, is that right?
No, Mrs. Wade was unable to make it. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, hang on. Are there any other questions or comments? Director Kluhl.
Well, I really appreciate you mentioning the demographics, because one of the thoughts that the board had, and I know the Arts Basics people and everybody had at the beginning, was that we not make this a selective group of kids who are socioeconomically advanced and bright, but having all kinds of kids together is so important. And the whole Creative Arts Academy concept, it was so great to develop our Creative Arts Academy.
Yes.
But I think it's icing on the cake to have this opportunity for the kids to go to get their core programs at Sudlow,
Yeah.
but to have this elegant integration of the arts and the curricular material at the same time. It's so important. And then to have folks from the University of Iowa interested as well. I see a potential future collaboration with them in this as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? All right, very good. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank
Great
you.
showcase. We'll move on to communications. Director Dickman, would you please read our upcoming events?
March 16th, the board self-evaluation from 5 to 8 at the St. Ambrose Alumni House. March 16th through March 20th will be spring break. March 23rd, regular meeting, 6 p.m. at ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. March 30th, Taste of Pro Start, 5:30 at the River Center in Davenport. On April 1st, there will be a policy committee, 4 p.m. ASC Executive Boardroom. April 6th, Committee of the Whole, 5:30 ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. April 7th, the Legislative Advocacy Committee, 3 p.m. ASC Executive Boardroom. April 13th, regular board meeting, 6 p.m. ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. April 14th, the LZAC Committee, 5:30 p.m. ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. April 16th, the 10 to 20 year service recognition event from 4:30 to 6:30 at the River Music Experience, downtown Davenport. April 21st, the annual retirement dinner from 5 to 9. That will be at the Radisson. And April 27th, the regular meeting at 6 p.m. ASC Jim Hester Boardroom.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to open forum. We have a good number of them here. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. We'll allow 2 minutes, and I'll read through about half of them, and that will be the order that you will come up and give your name and address at the microphone. Micah Mosher, Sally Ellis, Amanda Baxter, Lily Nguyen, Julie Cockworth. We'll start with those, and when we get done with those, I'll call up the next group. So we'll start with Micah.
Good afternoon. My name is Micah Mosier, 1717 East 31st Street, Davenport, Iowa. I'd like to take an opportunity to thank you for your time and then also express an opportunity that I'd like to share with you. So as many of you may know, as educators, you know that 50% of a child's learning is often done in the first 5 years of life. And what I'd like to do is present an opportunity for the board to invest in that opportunity along with the long-term and short-term returns on your investment. So what I'd like to share my concern is the closing of the 0 through 2 and the 2-year-old program at Children's Village East and West. I think that you're missing a huge opportunity with short-term investment where full-time family members that work, both the parents, are having the opportunity to work full-time in our community. I think that there's a huge missed opportunity should those classes close here in the near future. I think you have a long-term opportunity to actually meet a couple of your mission statements of actually thinking strategically and outside of the box, as well as your mission statement of improving long-term outcomes. So in short, what I'd like to conclude is that from a parent of a long-time Davenport person that's lived here for a long time, what I'd like to share is that my son Martine and my wife Melina would be gravely distraught if we had to find a new way for our son to be able to learn sign language, bilingual, motor skills, and all the other fundamental development that he's able to take away from Children's Village East and West. Micah Mosier, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Micah. Next is Sally Ellis.
Good evening, Sally Ellis. Thank you for listening. I have some ideas. I spent the whole day online. Oh, I'm sorry, 2216 North Nevada. I should know that. I did a lot of research online today at all the districts across the United States that were in budget trouble. And I wrote down a couple things that they were going to do. They were going to cut back on the use of cell phones with the administration. They were going to try to eliminate some of that expense. I know when I worked, I used my own phone in the district. I had a plan where call me minutes were free. So anytime the office or anybody wanted to call me, I didn't have to pay for it. And then I could take half of that cost of my cell phone monthly off on my taxes because I was using it for business all day. So that would be a savings. Maybe the people could use their own cell phones. Cut back on the sub pay by $15 a day. That might be a savings for us. A lot of them were cutting assistant principals. I'd like to see us work harder to do even less with the AEA, do in-house, facilitate our own meetings. I know that we always hire facilitators from the AEA. Perhaps someone could facilitate that. Reduce even more the travel of administration. And eliminate, I don't know if we still have this, we did when Dr. Blanche was here, but we had a car allowance for the superintendent, I'm sorry. And I would like to see, if we do, to have that disappear, and we could let the superintendent use a district car or pay him for mileage. That might save quite a bit of money, I'm sorry. And I was thinking that if we have, oh shoot. I'll be back next board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sally. All right, next is Amanda Baxter.
Amanda Baxter, 3523 West Lombard Street, Davenport 52804. I'm a lead para in the 2-year-old classroom at Children's Village West, and I'm here to defend the Birth Through Twos program and prove that it's not a daycare, an unfortunate misconception we hear often. I have a bachelor's in science degree in psychology, an associate's degree in biology, and my early childhood education diploma, and my CDA. I'm not a certified teacher, no, but that's not what a lead para is. We were chosen to be lead paras with the idea of teaching, and yes, infants, toddlers, and 2-year-olds can be taught. We prepare lesson plans following the creative curriculum and Iowa Early Learning Standards. We also base activities on goals assessments so children can get exactly what they need for their development at every age throughout preschool. I have provided in front of you examples of my lesson plans I've used throughout the past year so you can get an idea of just how much goes on into making our program, in my opinion, the best in the area. I invite each of you on the board to please visit my classroom. See for yourself how much these children are learning from our structured preschool program. You'll see us using the Second Step program to help them identify their feelings and learn appropriate ways to play. You'll see us using Growing with Mathematics and Handwriting Without Tears. You'll witness them learning letters, not just the alphabet song, numbers, not just counting aloud, rhyming words, not just listening to nursery rhymes. You'll see that our program is the best in the area. I encourage you all, before making any decisions or votes, please come see for yourself what you could be eliminating. Hopefully we can work out a plan in the next year to keep us open and available for all our parents who know and support the education that their kids get with us. After all, DCSD is the best place to learn. So come see me at Children's Village West, classroom 206. You won't be disappointed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amanda. Next is Lily Nguyen.
Hello, thank you for your time. I'm very want to talk about as a parent, Children Village West is a very...
Excuse me, Lily, I need
Oh,
your name and
sorry.
address.
Yeah, I'm in 2321 East 58th Street, Davenport. Yes. Sorry. As a parent, I think Children Village is a very nice place for my children. I have 2 girls and a boy will come there in August. It's a very nice place, and I feel very safe at work when my kid can come over there. They have very nice, kind teacher, para, and staff. Yeah. Yes. And I'm a Vietnamese translator. I have a lot of parents want me to help them to register for the program 0 to 3 in Children Village, and I don't think they have enough bed. So please don't close the program. For the baby toddler, they very need somewhere to. I think it's very good for them to be there. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Lily. Next is Julie Cockworth.
Julie Cockworth, 1528 Robeson Avenue, Bettendorf, Iowa. I am the para in the infant room at Children's Village West. Proudly. Consider this, in the time it takes a child to celebrate their 5th birthday, nearly 90% of their physical brain development has already happened. Despite research to show that the quality of their first 2,000 days greatly influences the outcome of their adult lives, we have not always supported the necessary investments in our youngest and most disadvantaged children. Currently in the Birth to 3 program at the villages, many of our students are receiving help because of their parents' lower income. We do, however, have some parent paid because their parents are both working, and we need that income as well. While a majority of children ages 3 to 5 are in some form of formal child care or preschool, many infants or toddlers are informally cared for by friends and families. Research demonstrates that the quality of these care environments has a direct impact on the development. An infant may not understand all the words we use, but they do develop a very close relationship with the nurturing interactions that we provide while we use the words that they are going to hear in preschool from now on. We use gentle hands. We use, that's his work, here's your work. We try to teach them to share right from the very beginning. Research also indicates that a child's quality of life and the contributions he or she will make to society can be directly traced to those first 2,000 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Next up, and I'll read off the next several, will be Sarah Schenk, Sarah Dolery, Carrie Weipert, Elizabeth Kempnich, Mickey Sloat, Anthony DeSalvo. We'll start with Sarah Schenk.
Hello, my name is Sarah Schenk. My address is 3101 Stafford Boulevard in Bettendorf, Iowa. I am the secretary at Children's Village West, along with a parent of a 3-month-old in the infant classroom at Children's Village West. Some of the reasons I want to tell you why my child is enrolled at Children's Village West. Quality. The Davenport School District hires the best of the best. The staff have background checks, have required levels of education, and are required to obtain continuing education hours. Number 2, curriculum. I know that at Children's Village West, the teachers and staff take the pre-K curriculum and adhere it to the birth to 2 age classrooms. They are worked with on a daily basis on their large motor skills, their fine motor skills, their language, and other important basic developmental skills. So I ask you, the board, please keep in mind my infant son and the other 59 innocent, voiceless children that this will affect if you choose to cut the Birth to Two program at Children's Village. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah DeLarry.
Hi, I'm Sarah DeLarry, 2866 Forest Road in Davenport. I'm a teacher and a parent at Children's Village West. Sorry. I have a 2-year-old. He turned 2 at the end of January and has been in the program since he was 9 weeks old. If you look at him and compare him to other kiddos that have not been in a program, you wouldn't believe he was 2. I mean, he is way past his years. He can put complete sentences together. He's in Amanda's room. He came home the other day and is showing me feelings on his face. He's saying happy and sad and showing me surprised. And not a lot of 2-year-olds can do that. I just had twins 3 weeks ago that could be part of this. And to think that they will not be able to attend a school possibly like Riker had just breaks my heart. My spouse could not be here today because we didn't have childcare, but we don't send our kids to daycare. They go to school, and every morning we say, it's time for school. We're not going to daycare. And he loves going. He loves learning, and we don't have another program in this area that will give my kids the quality of education that they have at West. So please just take that into mind. It's not daycare. I mean, that's a big misconception of people. You know, they just don't think that you can teach those little ones, and you can. That's the most important time. So please take that into consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is Carrie Weipert.
Carrie Weipert, 1540 West 48th Street, Davenport, Iowa, 52806. I am the lead para in the 1-year-old program at Children's Village West. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about how important I think the infant, toddler, and 2-year-old program is. I love what I do, and I love to watch the minds of our children as they grasp a concept for the very first time. I just wanted to share some things that we do in our classroom every day. We take the 3, 4, and 5-year-old program and simplify it. We have circle time, which consists of music and movement, story time, small groups, and large motor. We learn our ABCs, nursery rhymes, the basic concepts of fine motor skills, which include holding a crayon, a paintbrush. We implement language all throughout the day. We are consistently labeling and naming new things and introducing new words to our friends. We get really excited when we hear a friend say a word for the very first time. It would make me sad if this program was eliminated. I fear all that our youngest students would be missing. I feel that what I do and what we do at Children's Village West is important, and it makes a difference in our students' lives. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carrie. Next is Elizabeth Kempnich.
Sorry, I'm really short. Okay, thank you. Elizabeth Kempnick, 3024 Tremont Avenue. I would like to first say that I am a special ed teacher for the district, and I actually do work in the preschool program as well. I love my job. I love what I do. And also, I'd kind of like to take you back to a time that was a little bit scary. October 11th, my daughter was born. She was born not breathing. She was blue. And she had an APGAR of 2. For me as a special ed teacher, I know what that means. I know what it can mean. And my mind was just going and going. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? She went to Children's Village West. Within 17 months, she's 18 months now, within 17 months, she is able to walk. She is able to sign for things. She's able to talk to people. She's starting to make noises. And without that program, if we had cut it 2 years ago like we originally planned, where would she be right now? I was a mom that didn't, a special ed teacher, but I didn't know what I was doing. They do. And not only that, my thought is, yeah, there's other daycares. I called Children's Campus. It's a 2-year wait list for a kid that's not even born yet. That's not time. We need more spots for these parents. My husband and I both work. We need full day spots in good programs for these kids to manage, for them to learn. How far in 17 months, if she would have waited until she was 3, how far behind would she be then? How much farther would she have had to come from where she was? Yeah, I could have done some of it by that time, but why not catch it as early as we can? Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next is Mickey Sloat.
Hello, my name is Mickey Sloat, 4160 Regency Court, Davenport, Iowa. I'm here today to talk to you about inequality, but not the way you currently associate it, but in terms of school funding. Every district in the state of Iowa is given a per-student amount of money. Currently, the Davenport Community School District is receiving $6,366 per student. This is the state minimum. For example, Pleasant Valley is receiving $133 more than us per student, which totals around $3 million a year. If we cannot equalize these amounts, we will have to start putting programs on the chopping block. We've already seen growing class sizes and a lack of materials, and these problems will only worsen. In addition, teachers will be cut, as well as course selection, unfortunately. And this is only the beginning. Music programs, sports, and other specialty programs will have to be downsized and eventually cut, as you've heard from the preschool program today. This does not make a district of distinction. So I implore those of you who have not yet signed petitions, written to representatives and legislators, or spread the word to do so, and I thank those of you who have. Children are the future, so don't be afraid to invest in your future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. Our last open forum tonight is from Anthony DeSalvo.
Hi, I'm Anthony DeSalvo, 3929 West Garfield Street. As Mickey just said, we all know Davenport is facing some serious cuts coming in the next few years. I mean, we can see this in the Children's Village Center. I mean, what you guys are fighting for is a great cause. I'd like to applaud you guys for that. I mean, that's great. But right now, the entire district is being underfunded by 1.25%, or not underfunded. There's a proposed 1.25% increase per pupil funding per year. If this increase does go through, the results will be atrocious, gruesome. And it's not right that surrounding school districts get more than we do per student. Their students aren't worth more than ours. But I'd like to thank you all, the school board and the parents, for fighting to save these teachers and programs in these severe cuts. We're all trying to do the best that we can, and it's really showing. But please allow us to keep fighting. Please give us the materials that we need to keep going at these senators and keep going at these representatives. We want to be part of this too. We won't stand for our schools being underfunded, and we won't stand for inequality. Our students are not worth less than anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And thank you to all of you. Everything that you've said is really important. And Micah, Sally, Amanda, Lily, Julie, Sarah, Carrie, Elizabeth, Mickey, and Anthony. It's so important when you come and speak your mind and let the board and the community know what your thoughts are. We really appreciate it. We'll move on with the rest of the meeting. May I have a motion regarding consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwoody.
I move the consent agenda as presented by the administration.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeFau.
Unfortunately, I'm left mentioning yet again another teacher that's made a significant difference in my children's lives, and Mrs. Heinz at North High School is retiring, and we're approving that this evening, and it's with great sadness that I do so.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Okay. Call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the following recommendation on the adoption of bills. The resolution is as follows. Resolved that all claims presented to the board and having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn in the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the period of February 19th, 2015 through March 4th, 2015, with the following voided check, that being check number 325409, payable to Peterson Plumbing and Heating in the amount of $247, and that was the wrong amount.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Remember that we've moved the superintendent report, so we'll move on to other items requiring action. We're going to be talking about a budget guarantee and a budget amendment. I think we'll go ahead and allow these, and then you three students, is Mickey still here? Oh, okay, she'll be back in a couple of minutes then. All right. In a couple of minutes, I'd like to ask Mickey and Anthony, and I forget your name, Ezekiel, to come up with us and stand behind us for a couple of minutes, because we really appreciate what you're doing and the efforts that you're making and that you have made in working on this. Let's move on though to 9.01. May I have a motion regarding the approval of the budget guarantee resolution?
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board pass the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District will levy property tax for fiscal year 2015-16 for the regular program budget adjustment as allowed under Section 257.14 Code of Iowa.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeFow.
I'd like to ask Mrs. Tangen to explain why we're in the position of having to approve this resolution at this time.
What the budget guarantee does is guarantee the district at least 1% additional funding from last year to this year. Currently, the state is at 0%, but we are guaranteed at least 1%. If they do not set the amount of supplemental state aid at least 2% or more, that budget guarantee will kick in, which will guarantee us at least 1%.
And can you explain how that 1% is funded?
The 1% is funded strictly through property tax. It's not state aid. It is part of our property tax levy that we are recommending you approve.
So when the legislature contends that they can't support school funding because it would result in an increase in taxes, it really simply is a displacement of a tax burden because we are in fact taxing in order to get that money.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Hayes? Yes. Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
Director DeFow?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of the 2014-15 budget amendment?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to amend the 2014-15 certified budget in the area of instruction from $123,722,248 to $124,466,151, and in the area of total other expenditures from $36,914,597 to $38,788,112.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? We'll call for the vote. Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director DeFau?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Mickey, while you were out, what I asked if you three, Mickey, Ezekiel, and Anthony, if you would mind coming up and standing behind us for just a couple of minutes as we start getting into some of these budget issues. It's just an opportunity to. I really like your shirts.
We had shirts like that once.
We did. I was thinking about wearing those tonight.
Yeah.
I won't keep you up here too long. So the next, we're going to have a motion, and then after that motion, I'm going to go back to the superintendent report. So may I have a motion regarding the approval of the 2015-16 budget?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
upon the administration's recommendation, I recommend that the board adopt and certify the tax levy rate for the 2015-16 fiscal year as published and presented. The proposed property tax levy rate per $1,000 of taxable valuation will be $15.83627, and resources and requirements are estimated at $276,972,774.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, Director Snyder.
I guess I would just like to say for clarity purposes that this is the same rate that we currently have. We are not lowering it. We are not raising it.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional discussion? Director DeFau.
For the audience's sake, the clarification as to why budget was removed from the language of this recommendation so that we are only approving the tax levy rate.
Let me take that one on. The reason is really that the requirement is that we certify a tax levy rate, and by including the word budget in this particular motion, I was concerned that it would mix up some of the requirements, and it would make it more difficult to understand exactly what we were passing. And so right now, all we are doing is passing this certification of the tax levy rate, which is what the CFO needs. And Marcia, that's correct, right? Okay. And then you will certify these numbers by April 15th. Okay. And this is what you need to complete that action. Okay, great. I don't know if that's real clear, but that's why I did it. So, any other discussion? Director Dickman.
We had a lot of parents come up today to talk about the 0 to 2 program. And so I wanted to, I guess, clarify my own understanding, and then also for the public, that is a proposal, not a definitive decision, and that we're not solidifying that either way with the vote tonight.
That's correct. All we're doing right now is certifying the property tax levy rate. That is all that's happening right now. Okay? Thank you for asking for that clarification. Any additional discussion? Student board members, you want to weigh in on any of this? All right. Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. Director Kluel.
Yes.
Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
Director DeFoe.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And students, thank you for standing up with us. I really, really appreciate it. And but if you want to sit back down now, I'm going to turn things over to the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of things to celebrate. Iowa is one of 34 states that participates in the College and Career Readiness Campaign, and one thing they do annually is to pick exemplars in college and career readiness. They pick an employer, a college, a community college, a school, and a student. And the school this year is our Central High School. So they have been recognized throughout the state, and they actually are now being promoted to national to see if they will get picked at the national level. So that's great for Central High School. I think that we've all seen it, but I wanted to reiterate that our own Jason Frasenberg, who is our technology teacher, our STEM teacher at West High School, was selected as 2015 STEM Education Award recipient. So we're very proud of him and the program. And with your permission, I'd like to read a prepared statement. While attending the Davenport Legislative Forum on Saturday, I was deeply impressed by two things. First, students from our district were wearing T-shirts proclaiming, "I'm worth -less." And it made me realize my personal responsibility as their leader to take action to assure that their district provides them with budget support equal to other students throughout the state. Second, as I listened to members of the audience question why the legislature can ignore the law by not producing a timely two-year education budget, it caused me to consider why I should be held to a higher standard when it comes to statutes concerning the budget. Iowa State Code 257.7 prohibits district from spending more than they are authorized based on the district's certified budget and the increase in allowable growth, or what's now called state supplemental aid, provided by the state. In other words, the state restricts how much a district can spend, no matter how much money you may have in the bank. The state requires that districts maintain something called the unspent balance, which comes from monies the state allowed you to spend but instead were saved as a reserve. Here's the important point. State law does not allow the unspent balance to go into the red, which means that you're spending more than the state authorized. That is against the law. I'm formally informing the board tonight and the public that my intention is to violate the state law. With my plan that begins next school year, I put into play operations which will bring us into spending more than authorized by the state sometime during school year 2016-2017, and that violates State Code 257.7. I am taking this action after careful consideration and understanding the possible personal consequence. I take full and sole responsibility for the violation of state law. With this action, I am following the example of our state legislature, which has ignored the law this year by not providing districts with the state supplemental aid amount by February 12, 2015. Let me emphasize that we have reserve cash to fund this effort. What we lack is state authorization. The state funding formula is complicated and hard to master, but these facts are not complicated. 1. Our students and families have unmet needs resulting from a lack of funding. 2. We have cash reserves on hand of $29 million. 3. By using our reserves, we can sustain additional funding of programs without increasing the tax levy. And 4. The state formula undervalues our students by $3.2 million each year. The Davenport Community School District is comprised of nearly 16,000 students with a 67.3% free and reduced lunch population. The district's Board of Education and I have been transparent in describing the critical challenges which face our school system and our students. Our most notable challenges are achievement rates which do not meet our standards, a wide achievement gap between many subgroups, which is absolutely unacceptable, a dropout rate which, although significantly improved, still reflects that too many students are leaving our schools each year before graduation, and a suspension rate which, although it reflects national trends, is problematic. By its board policies, the directors acknowledge the overriding effects of poverty on education in this district. For over 4 years, this district has been involved in significant reform efforts to address our challenges. Our Board of Education, administrators, teachers, and staff are focused on implementing programs which provide amazing supports for our students and families. With over 18 years' experience as a superintendent in 4 states and 5 school districts, I can say without reservation, I have never seen an organization more committed to success than Davenport. As I visit the schools, I personally witness the sacrifices made on behalf of students. Our schools are making Herculean efforts which reach far beyond the mission of education. This is a caring district. All that being said, the fact is that we do not have adequate resources to provide appropriate response measures to meet our challenges. Instead of adding needed supports and interventions, we have been reducing our budget for over a decade. Davenport Community School District is one of 165 districts in the state of Iowa which receives less money per student than a group of 173 higher compensated districts. The I'm worth-less t-shirt is literally correct. Our students are valued less than many others in the state. This unfair situation has evolved from the early 1970s when the state funding formula was enacted and carries forward to the present day, where value placed on our students is $175 less than the value for students in districts which receive the highest per student rate in the state. In other words, the state funding formula is explicit in valuing a Davenport student less than students in over 170 other districts, including, for example, Pleasant Valley and Bettendorf. How can this be right in any universe? If Davenport students have the same per pupil value as the highest compensated districts in the state of Iowa, this year and next we would receive an additional $3.2 million to spend on our students. I need to repeat that. Because Davenport students have less per pupil value in the state funding formula, we receive $3.2 million less than equality would dictate. How is that fair? How is that equitable? How can we accept that our students have less funding value than the students in PV or Bettendorf? It is hard for me to even conceive how a state government could have allowed this discriminatory practice to exist for so long. In the last 5 years, Davenport School District would have received an additional $17,352,998 had we been getting the highest per pupil compensation. $17,352,998. Instead, in the last 5 years, the district has had to reduce its budget by a total of $17,272,791, almost the exact amount that we were denied by a system which discriminates against half the districts in the state. Next year, I will retain several logical reductions in the budget. 1, early retirement. 2, utility savings through an energy conservation program. 3, moving maintenance contracts from general fund to management fund. And 4, curtailment of professional development during the school day. The total of these cuts will be $1,405,000. I will be making no other reductions to programs and personnel, and most notably, I will not be increasing class size in order to reduce teacher positions. There will be normal minor changes in teacher positions due to using our staffing guide, and I will continue to look for savings in department budgets and through possible consolidation of leadership positions. But I cannot, with a clear conscience, make reductions which will damage student achievement when the undervaluing of our students is institutionalized by the funding formula of the state. I want to prove to the students, parents, and employees of this district that they have equal value to any school district in the state. In addition to taking fewer budget reductions than I have originally proposed, I intend to use up to $1 million to support new programs designed to reduce our achievement gap, to fight the effects of poverty, and to address diversion programs needed to turn around our out-of-school suspension numbers. We must enact these new systems of support to turn around situations and inequities that are unacceptable. We cannot continue business as usual. By not reducing the budget as previously planned and by adding new essential programs, the plan to increase the unspent balance to $8 million over time will be negatively impacted. This places me on a glide path to violate the state law during the 2016-17 school year when we spend more than authorized, but not more than we have in the cash reserves. But I have a plan to build up the reserve fund and to be fiscally responsible. My plan is simple: to be relentless and pressuring the state to change the law so that Davenport students will receive the same per pupil dollars as the highest compensated districts in the state, and to push for immediate passage of a law which will let us spend cash reserves to increase our per pupils expenditures. When the district and our students have equal value in the state, we will be back on track for constituting an unspent balance and not overspending the authority budget. We can't continue to reduce programs and expect that all our great ideas and intentions will turn the tide. As a leader of this district, I cannot turn a blind eye to our needs, knowing that there are practices and programs which can make a measurable difference in our results. We all know the impact that poverty makes on our community and upon education. I cannot sit idly by and pretend that we can make $3.5 million in reductions in our budget next year and that things will be okay. Things will not be okay. We have to be bold, we have to employ proven techniques, and we have to do whatever it takes to meet the needs of our students and community. I feel a personal obligation to provide this community with the best education system possible. We cannot do that without reasonable resources. We cannot accomplish our mission until our students are valued equally with all other students in the state. It is important to note and to point out that we have $29 million in cash reserves in the bank, and no additional levies are needed to accomplish my plan. We have the cash to pay for every program and position without increasing taxes. We just do not have state authority to spend more because the formula undervalues our students. Everyone must understand that if our students were valued the same as the highest per pupil students in the state, if there were equality of funding, if all districts were treated the same, we would have $3.2 million more to spend, and I would not have to break the law in order to support my district. In short, I care more about our students and their needs than I do about the state law in this case, and that's all I have to say about that.
I'm going to allow board discussion at this point, as we would in a regular superintendent report. And so any board members that would like to comment or make or have questions, go ahead. Director DeFau.
Thank you, Dr. Tate, for being bold and having vision to take us where we need to go to ensure the educational best interest of our students. I would like to add in what Dr. Tate said that the $3.2 million sounds like a huge amount of money that's being requested. When you equate that to a per pupil daily rate, that is 97 cents a day per student. Are our students worth 97 cents a day? It incenses me that is such an obscene number, 97 cents. And I would urge everyone in this audience and everyone who's heard will hear Dr. Tate today to, take a stand united with our superintendent and do what's right for students. And I'd also like to know where I can get one of those fine I Am Worth Less t-shirts, because I would be happy to buy one. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you. Director Hayes?
I would just like to say thank you, Dr. Tate. I'm very, very proud of the bold stand that you're taking in behalf of our young people.
Thank you. Anybody else? Director Snyder?
Dr. Tate, I think you did an outstanding job of getting the message out that we are not the only district that's in this boat. We have several other smaller districts in this state that are being discriminated against. And we are not asking for anything more than what they are already giving to other districts. We are just asking that our students be treated the same as the rest of the state of Iowa. And I don't think that's too much to ask, and I think it's criminal that we're put in this position and our children are made to wear shirts that say, "I'm worth less." I can't believe that it has come to that. The state of Iowa used to be the leader in the nation in education. We are now 35th in the nation, yet we are 9th in the nation with cash reserves. So what investment does the state of Iowa think is more important than our children? That is my question.
Thank you. Anybody else? Director Dickman?
Thank you, Dr. Tate. I'm sure that this decision was not easy to come to, but I think that you are taking bold leadership and you deserve the giant round of applause that you got here tonight. I also want to take a moment to thank Julie and Anthony DeSalvo, who've been great advocates in getting this information out there to parents, and really letting the community know that this is something that is affecting all of us.
Thank you. Anybody else? Director Crumwitty?
I applaud you, Dr. Tate. My goodness, I just want to say, wow. That's what our president always says. This is just, it's overwhelming to me. I am so excited and fired up right now. And like I have told our president, we need to do something radical, and we're starting to do something radical. I went to the forum on Saturday. I was so disappointed in every legislator that was there, because if they really wanted to help us, they would have stood up and said, yes, I'm going to do something for you, and none of them did. So I hope you're all listening out there, because we're going to do this, and hopefully you'll start listening to what we've been talking about. And I even heard one legislator say, I only heard about this a year ago. We have been working on this for several years. Our Legislative Advocacy Committee, back when Director Zamora was president, we were already talking about this. So it's nothing new. It's been going on too long. We have lost too much money, and it's about time. So I applaud you, Dr. Tate, and I applaud the parents and the students, and I encourage all of our public to be out there knocking on doors and letting people know we need your support, and you need to contact your legislators to get things changed in Des Moines. So thank you.
Director Clough?
Well, I feel like I walked out of a board meeting and into a Baptist revival session here.
Hallelujah.
Thank you, Pastor Tate. This comes as really somewhat of a shock, but no surprise to those of us that have been working this issue for a long time. We've written letters, we've done the advocacy, we've done our part, we've written legislation that would please both sides of the House, and we finally come to the point where we have to do something. We're looking at things in the 15-16 year, like reducing 15 teachers in high schools, 6 in intermediate, 4 teachers at elementary, eliminating instructional coaches, reading intervention specialists. And something that Dr. Tate left on the table is curtailing professional development to reduce the need for substitutes. It's interesting, the Lighthouse study is a study done by the ISB, which clearly indicates those boards that are in moving forward positions and those that are stuck. And they recommend that you never, even under financial duress, curtail professional development. So it's not like what we're doing here relieves us of pain. It alleviates the pain. The other things coming up next year are even worse. And these are all issues that, in order to be a fiscally responsible board, we have set ourselves about to do over the last 3 or 4 years. So we have a requirement to be fiscally responsible, but on the other hand, Iowa Code 280-14 says that the school board is responsible for and will maintain adequate administration, school staffing, personnel assignment policies, teacher qualifications, licensing requirements, facilities, equipment, grounds, and instructional materials. So we have requirements to be fiscally responsible, but we also have a requirement not to harm. And essentially, what we're looking at the next 2 years in our intent to try to be fiscally responsible is creating harm. And so I think that the proposal that Dr. Tate has submitted tonight is on track with where we need to go, because I think our highest priority is to not harm students, but to further their interest here in our district, in our city. So I fully concur. I think this is an issue this is an area that I would not wish to have gotten into, but I think that hard times require difficult decisions, and I think this is the right decision. I appreciate your words, Dr. Tate.
Student board members, you have anything? Luke?
It just seems absurd that we have $29 million in cash reserves that we're not allowed to spend, and I'm very proud to be a part of a district that's leading the way into hopefully being able to use the money we have.
Thank you. Bennett?
I just kind of feel like in a state that places such a big thing about bullying on the schools, that the students are reduced to wearing shirts that say "I'm worthless" to get the state's attention. I feel like that's bullying by the state.
Very good. Anybody else? Director Dickman?
Write your legislators. If you feel strongly about this, not only do it yourself, but tell all your friends, have a letter writing party. They don't get as many emails. You always hear about stuff at the federal level. They don't get as many emails at the state level, so they really hear you. Write them a heartfelt email. Call them. Whatever it takes, but really, it does make a difference.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
I would say not only direct those letters to legislators, but let's help Linda Cook out here in her performance appraisal and send letters to the editor as well.
Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion? I've got a few things, although most things have been said, and I'm not sure that I'll get into it. One, I wanted to say I am exceptionally proud of Dr. Tate and of our district and our board and our community. My hope is that this bold position will not only help us, but that it will help the state to get back on track. There are a few other little things that I will be doing. As I've thought about this for the past several years, I've gotten more and more incensed because it just doesn't seem right. And it's hard for me to understand how can other people not see that it's not right. And I know there are legislative reasons that this is a difficult challenge. But when it's unfair, when it's not right, I expect somebody in our state leadership to take that lead and to do what's right. One of the things that I've been toying with, and I guess we've gotten a little bit more bold, and our legislative advocacy committee, working with others, developed a bill. We actually got a bill number this year, and it addresses some of this. I'm hopeful that we may end up with a whole lot of bills. one of the bills or one of the ideas that I'm thinking about is trying to get retroactive spending authority. We've been denied this spending authority for the past 40 years. Okay, so maybe if we only get 5 or 10 years of spending authority, it would give us a lot of opportunity. You know, I did look at the Iowa Constitution. It's interesting because it mirrors in a lot of ways our U.S. Constitution, but in the Bill of Rights, Article 1, it talks about rights of persons. And in Section 1, it says, all men are, by nature, free and equal. And I think about that word equal. As we talk about equity, I think about all the students, everything that has been mentioned already. One other one that I highlighted because some of the words that I've written in private scare myself. But it does talk about in our Bill of Rights, it talks about liberty of speech and press, Section 7, and it says, every person may speak, write, and publish his sentiments on all subjects, being responsible for the abuse of that right. No law shall be passed to restrain or abridge the liberty of speech or of the press. And I still haven't published some of my thoughts, but I might after reading that. I don't have anything more to say except thank you again. Thank you all for being here, for your support of Dr. Tate and his bold position. Anything else? All right. Director Kluhl?
Well, since you talked about thoughts, there's just one thought I had. We had our meeting, our forum, of course, on Saturday, our education forum, and I was helping facilitate, so I couldn't really say anything. But there were a lot of comments about the fact that public education takes up a large share of the state's budget. In fact, 45% goes to K through 12 education. But I thought it was interesting to think that although the cost of education might be high, what's the cost of ignorance? Thank you for letting me say that. I didn't get to say it then, but I got to say it now.
All right. Well, it's been a trying several minutes up here. Any additional discussion? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the other action items. May I have a motion regarding approval of meal prices?
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve the meal prices for the 2015-16 school year as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeFau.
I would again like someone to come forward to explain why we are increasing meal prices.
Mickey Carrington will explain as she did last year. It still exists, so thank you, Mickey.
Wow, you're a hard act to follow. Yes, the meal prices are being raised 5 cents across the board at lunch and 10 cents across the board at breakfast. And the reason is in the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, there was legislation federally that said we have to raise prices to equal the reimbursement rate for the free and reduced price meals. So they provide us a formula. They want you to get to a weighted average of $2.70. We're currently at $2.41, and they give us a formula to put in to say how much we have to raise the meal prices. So we're going to chase them each and every year until we reach their federally mandated level.
Is that sufficient? Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Director Snyder.
How much or how close does this minor increase come to offsetting some of the higher costs associated with the stricter guidelines that the lunch programs have to follow?
not very close. For example, at breakfast, we're now required to offer a fruit and a juice, or at least one cupful, so it's twice as much. The cost of that is probably around 20 cents, and we're raising the prices a dime. So,
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluel.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of West High School YMCA gym air conditioning project?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve the lowest responsive bid for $152,045 from Hometown Plumbing and Heating for the West High School YMCA gym air conditioning project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
second.
Is there any discussion? Director Snyder.
Is the YMCA or the school district responsible for the heating and cooling of that gymnasium?
According to the partnership, Marcia helped me with this, they do give us a utility assessment each year based on that. So they will be responsible. In fact, I think they're on a separate system so we can get accuracy off of that. This came about, as you remember, perhaps several months ago. We talked about it and got approval for about $275,000 packet to assist them with upgrades of their joint use facilities, and this was part of it. And why this is different is their major activity is in the summer. That's when they primarily use it, and so that's why the air conditioning, so they can enhance their program at West High School. And Mike, I don't know if you have anything else to say about utilities. And
only that this will be the most energy efficient equipment we can put in to accomplish the goal.
And if I understood this correctly, this is to be in compliance with the agreement that we have with the YMCA in regards to the location where they're at, correct?
well, it's part of the partnership agreement. It doesn't specifically say, and we've talked for years about what is their responsibility and what is ours, and we actually put together a team from our board and their board to talk about some of these things, and we actually have an amendment to the partnership agreement saying that things of this nature are discussed between the two CEOs, and if they can't come to agreement, then they bring in other groups. So it vaguely specifies it, but not specifically.
Okay. Anybody else? Olivia.
Assuming this gets passed, when would this be implemented?
Construction would start in just a couple of 3-4 weeks.
Anybody else? Bennett?
Would this be done for the West kids to use this year?
I don't think this will be done before school is out this year.
Any other discussion? Director Snyder.
Okay, I guess because that brings up some of the questions that I've been hearing from the community, and I guess why I asked some of the things that I asked. But right away, people say, well, the gym at Central's not air conditioned, the gym at North is not air conditioned. We're talking about the Y gymnasium and not the main West gymnasium, correct?
Correct. It's the gym that the Y uses and not the competition gym that West uses for their competitive.
So the actual student body won't see the benefits of the air-conditioned gym, more the Y clientele.
I believe there are some PE classes that use that from time to time, but I'm not certain. I'd have to ask Mr. Lawler.
Okay.
Olivia?
For our gym classes, we use that on a regular basis, as well as every year we use it for AP testing and occasionally other activities.
Thank you. Director Dickman.
I
I think that we have to also look at the fact that the climate is changing and it's getting warmer, and especially as it clips into August or into the end of school and during the summer months, that an air-conditioned space for students to have is going to be important.
Any additional discussion? What I'd like to address briefly is that the reason for the air conditioning is to meet the requirements of the contract, right?
Again, the joint partnership agreement does not specifically say that they will have access to air conditioning. It says it will work out these issues, and probably a year and a half ago was when, maybe even 2 years, when they first brought the capital improvement group to us, and we looked at it and said, yes, let's do that. So it really is, what the partnership does say is we need to make every effort to make sure that the North Y and the West Y are successful. The West Y is the one that they have the most challenges about, and we're losing money on. And so, again, it's a way to enhance their programs to try to get more membership.
Yeah, and so I want to be careful about suggesting that the reason is because of any changing climate, which is that I don't think is really playing into the reason for what we're doing. I just want to make sure that's clear. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Any additional discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding policy?
Mr. President,
Director DeFau.
I move that the board accept the policy committee's recommendation and approve the following policies. 502.18, animals on district property, 605.01, progress report of students, and 605.02, testing program.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just would like to add that each of these policies has been before the board previously. They were brought back for minor clarifications, which are provided, and we now ask that the board finalize approval.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Director Dickman.
Over the weekend there at the forum, I ran into a teacher who told me that she was doing 5 tests this week, most of which were state, and I realized we have no control over. But she mentioned that one of the tests was a district-wide test, that the results of which are not entered into any formula that goes any higher than the district level. I wondered if Dr. Tate would address what the district-wide assessment is and what purpose it serves.
I'm not sure what she's talking about. I'd have to talk to her myself. I don't know what school she's from, what level, so.
Okay.
I
Is there a
couldn't at this
district-wide
time.
assessment that we do for,
There are many. We have the Scholastic Math Inventory, the Scholastic Reading Inventory.
are those,
We do DIBELS.
aren't those state though?
They are, and again, we do have leveling tests we do for our district. So I can't comment.
Okay.
If
Well,
you'd let me know, or
all right, I'll follow up
welcome,
then.
yeah.
I don't have any, the policy, I just wanted to ask about that while we're discussing testing. Because obviously we don't want to be wasting our students' time taking redundant tests.
And I would say that we've done a lot of careful work, especially about 3 years ago. We looked at all of our assessments, and I don't think it's anything redundant. But if teachers think they are, we need to know it. I would certainly look at it. Nothing jumps out at me right now.
Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
I was just curious why the policy committee decided to make this a policy rather than an administrative regulation.
I believe there's an Iowa code reference at the bottom of the policy, so it's in compliance with Iowa code and has been on the books since, what do we have here, 1976 in some variation. It's been a requirement.
Yeah. Well, my concern is, I certainly understand the need for therapy dogs and that some students rely on them heavily, but when I look
I'm
through
sorry. I thought you were on the testing.
No, actually,
Okay.
I'm on the
All right,
pets.
so my apologies. The policy regarding animals on district property, I'm going to defer to President Johansson because he is the one that made the request that the policy committee consider adopting a policy relevant to that.
Thank you. We had, it was probably a couple of years ago now, we had various instances that would occur, and people would bring these issues to me. One of them happened to be a parent that wore a 4-foot iguana across her chest when she came to student registration. And it really alarmed some of our staff. That was one instance. We've had people bringing dogs into Brady Street Stadium. We've had people bringing dogs into the schools and saying, well, I'm training my therapy dog. And so I did ask for, well, in fact, I had requests that we establish some sort of a policy regarding animals in the district, because we have a lot of legitimate reason for animals to be here as well. And so the policy committee has worked on it. There are a lot of pieces of this policy that were taken from other policies. And but that's really kind of the genesis of that requirement. And especially, I'll tell you what, that iguana really set people off. It was a real big deal. I remember the staff member coming to me. She was very, very concerned about that. Is it going to jump off and bite her? You know, what's it doing? So that's the purpose of it.
Did you actually have any discussion, though, in regards to being an administrative regulation versus a policy? The reason that I'm saying that is I looked through the policy as it's written, and it goes down to the detail of classroom pets and teachers wishing to maintain small animals in the classroom. I mean, I'm surprised that we don't talk about what days you feed Timmy Turtle here. It just seems to be the kind of thing I would expect to see in administrative regulation rather than board policy. It gets pretty deep into the school classroom itself. So I was a little, I just wanted an answer to why it was that this became a policy, or whether you had any discussion about whether it should perhaps be an administrative regulation.
Do you want to try and answer that, or do you want me to?
You have the floor, so otherwise I'm happy to.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Yeah. And all I would say is that as we were having conversation about the policy, it seemed it was consensus of the members at that time that we did need to establish some fairly explicit ground rules, given that this was a new policy, and that we did not want to people to infer that the only permissible animal within a building would be a service animal. And so because of that, we looked at a more comprehensive policy that established, for example, the opportunity to have a therapy dog in terms of legal obligations and requirements. You know, therapy dogs are not considered the same as a service animal, which, you know, is obviously a protected right of a student or someone else to have a service animal in our buildings. And this policy was also congruent with many other policies that we reviewed. We didn't simply look at what we thought would be best. We looked at comprehensive policies from throughout the state. We conferred with our legal counsel. We had several revisions. This is a policy that we've been working on for at least 6 months. And so what we bring before you today is a policy that we believe meets the needs of the district at this time.
And I don't discount that this is important information. It's just how it's presented as a policy versus an administrative regulation that I have an issue with. And that is my own opinion, and I just wanted to clarify that. I had wondered if you'd actually had the discussion, administrative regulation policy. And so I'll continue to bring these things up just to prompt that kind of thought.
And I would say that normally we do have that discussion, and there's always a balancing act of some sort, and we always do, or almost always have, an administrator there that's watching over it. So, Bennett, you had wanted to say something a little bit ago?
I was just going to say, I work in the auditorium, and I don't know if any of you have ever come to an event that I do, but I've had people bring in like little dogs in their purses before, and we don't know what to do about that.
Thank you. Director Dickman.
To speak more directly to the question of administrative regulation versus board policy, the story that you had told about the 4-foot iguana, which still startles me a little bit, was that the individual said something along the lines of, well, show me the policy that says I can't. And I think that is something that if it was an administrative regulation, that the administrators would have to say, well, because we have this regulation that you can't, and that would be something that a community member who was more persistent might try to challenge, whereas if it is a board policy, that it stands a little more firm, that the administrators can say, our board has discussed this, they have voted on this, this is what it says, and we must stand by it.
I appreciate that clarification, because that is exactly right, and we have been challenged by members of our community, as Bennett just mentioned, and people are becoming more willing to go ahead and adopt that position, that I can do anything that isn't specifically required. Maybe they've been thinking about Dillon's rule a little bit too much. But anyway, at the same time, I do appreciate the concern for the differentiation between policy and administrative regs. And then we have work rules beyond all that probably don't apply here, but we'll keep going. Director Snyder.
One last thing on that is administration had actually come to us too and said they would like a policy over and above a administration regulation, just so that we have consistency.
My only response to that from a leadership position would be the slippery slope that you get into when you start to turn everything in administrative regulation into policy just so it can be enforced. If we aren't enforcing administrative regulations, then we have a problem.
Are you going to advocate that we not pass this policy?
I don't feel that strongly about it.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, thank you. We'll call for the vote. Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We have some discussion items. First up is language essentials. Well, they're coming up. I'd say there's a good chance we're going to be done before 9. Just saying.
There was. You just ruined it.
I know you do. I know. I know. Bye-bye. Thanks. Patty.
Yes, thank you for having us. I would like to introduce two of the specialists from the Special Education Department who are with me here tonight to present. This is the final segment of the series that we've been doing throughout the last few months on the literacy initiatives that are going on in the district. And so this will be our final presentation on that. I have Susan Downs and Shari Larson. Both are specialists out of our office. They are both, we refer to Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. The acronym for that is LETTERS. And they are both trained trainers to provide the training to our staff. So we are going to talk about what we've been up to with Language Essentials and then open it up for questions from any of you. So 5 years ago, when I started as the Director of Special Education, one of our major initiatives that we knew we needed to focus on for students with disabilities was improving student achievement in all areas. But that being such a big task to undertake, we decided we had to narrow our focus down to the most important area that we needed to work on for students with disabilities, and that area was, of course, literacy. And our viewpoint and our philosophy at that time was that the best investment that we can make in improving student achievement for students with disabilities is to invest in teachers and provide them with the necessary training that they need in order to effectively remediate our students and their literacy challenges. So 5 years ago, that was the undertaking that we put into play in special education. Little did we know that the professional development that we were providing to our special education teachers would also become vital to all teachers in our district. And so what started out as our special education initiative to improve reading scores and teach our students with disabilities how to read has actually morphed into a district-wide initiative. So again, our philosophy is that teachers improve student achievement, not products, not putting a student in front of a computer. Providing our teachers with the best professional development, and I've heard that mentioned here tonight, is critical to our work. This particular training is vital and essential for all students, or excuse me, all teachers, pre-K-12, and we've actually provided this training to our early childhood teachers, all of our special education teachers, and now we've moved into the arena of ensuring that all of our K-3 general education teachers are getting this training. As you know, I've stood up here in front of you before and I've talked about sustainability, and that's why we believe in having an internal TOT model or trainers of training model. And 5 years ago, that's the model that we built, and it's benefited us tenfold in being able to provide the training. We'll talk here later about how many teachers we've actually trained in the district, which is a remarkable undertaking. We're committed to this, and it's training that's been in place for 5 years, and we have no desire or no intention of it going anywhere. It really is the foundation for the professional development that we provide now in the area of literacy, and are committed to continuing it. And so I just want to throw that out. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Susan and Shari.
So people often ask us, what is LETTERS? What is it exactly? Because I think people get the misconception that LETTERS is some sort of reading program we put in place, and that's not what it is. It is incredibly intensive professional development that takes place over 16 full days, and we cover 12 modules, which Shari's going to go over. The professional development is for educators who are responsible for instruction in reading, writing, and spelling. All of the information presented in LETTERS in the professional development is based on scientifically based reading research, and all programs that then we implement based on that, or the products that we've purchased, are endorsed by the scientifically based reading research. There is tons of science behind teaching reading, and now that we know that science, we're teaching our teachers the science, but then we need to change our practices in accordance to that science so that we make the best use of our time when we're working with kids. And we're in a crisis. We talked about this once before. We're in a crisis in our district in the number of students who are not proficient in the area of reading and writing. So LETTERS is designed that participants learn and understand how students learn to read and why some students have difficulty with it. what must be taught during reading and spelling lessons and how to teach it most effectively. We talk about the 5 components of reading instruction, why they're important, why they're necessary, and how they're interrelated, because you have to cover all 5. We also work on, there's 2 modules on assessment, so we work with teachers to learn about what assessments are critical and how to use assessment to drive instruction, because you can't have good instruction for students that meet the needs of all students without assessing them. And we don't want to do inappropriate assessments or redundant assessments, and we talk about that. And then it really talks about the structure of the English language, because what we've learned from the brain research is that reading and writing, but reading is a linguistic skill that's based on how we develop our own language skills and how we develop language within our students. So that's the gist of it. Sorry.
So what do we want our teachers to know and be able to do? We always have an end goal in mind for them anytime we do professional development. The first thing is we want them to have a deep understanding of the process of what goes on in your brain. We all take reading for granted, and it's a very complex process. And what we know is something that comes innately to us, and having to break that skill back down can be very difficult, and teachers need to have the understanding of just how important a phoneme is or how important a morpheme is. And so it's really, it scaffolds their learning across 12 modules, which I'll share with you here in a second. The other thing is we want our teachers to be effective and efficient. Okay, our time is so precious, their time is so precious, and so we try to teach them how to be effective and efficient with the structures that they have in place. The other thing is that LETRS does for them is it creates that bridge for teachers between assessments, resources, and knowledge. We can have all kinds of resources, we can have all kinds of knowledge, we can have all kinds of assessments, but if we don't create those bridges for the teachers, they all operate in isolation, and we know that those all have to be intricate and create a network so that they're successful. The last thing is our goal is to obviously close that achievement gap. And what we found very early on was just because our students were on IEPs, there were other students in our programs, in our buildings, who are struggling readers. And one size does not fit all. And so the data has shown us across the district, for example, our Winters Dibbles from 1st grade to 5th grade shows us basically 60% of our students at all those levels are proficient, and 40% of our students are not. They need something different. But the beauty of LETRS is it's not just focusing on that 40%. It helps teachers have a deeper understanding and take, like for example, even if I'm working with tag teachers, I've worked with some tag teachers, they'll say, oh my gosh, that whole morphology concept, that's what I could do, that layers of the language, that's what I can do to take my students' understanding deeper. So it's beyond just helping the kids with the achievement gap. So the LETRS modules has 12 basic concepts. We have 12 basic modules. 1 through 3 is really the foundation, the research, the theoretical models. And then 4, 5, and 6 is really digging into fluency and comprehension. 7, 8, and 9 is talking about advanced word study, and that gets into writing. And 10, 11, and 12 is kind of writing, and then it's kind of doing case studies with them and bringing everything together for them. So when you look at those 12 modules, that looks simplistic, but it's very, very deep what goes on in those 12 modules. So at this point, we have trained 312 special education teachers, 233 gen ed teachers, and 15 AEA people. What's really cool about LETRS is it has no boundaries. It doesn't matter if you're a kindergarten teacher or a high school teacher. It doesn't matter if you teach gen ed or sped ed. LETRS is about getting the knowledge to the teachers so that they can make the connections to what they're doing in the classroom, the resources and the assessment to help kids advance no matter where they are on the continuum. Sorry.
So as we've learned in our LETRS training and so forth, and what we always say is that teaching reading is rocket science. It's very sophisticated and takes a lot of knowledge in order to understand how to help all kids. And as Dr. Tate says, we must all be teachers of reading in order to help our students achieve. And there's nothing truer than that. And with that being said, that's a brief overview of the professional development that we are providing for our teachers. And we will open it up to any questions you may have.
Thank you. That really was brief.
I know. We try to keep it brief.
Nice job.
Trust me, we could go on a lot longer, but
I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
Are there any questions or discussion? Director Crumwoody.
Thank you. And thank you. And I've heard just great things about the LETRS program. I only have one question. we all know we have a number of retirements that are happening this year, and I'm curious, what will be the training for new staff that come on board next year? And will this happen every year to train teachers in letters at the beginning of the year or in the summer before they come on board?
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. One of the, yes, Dr. Tate mentioned before that we are going to put a moratorium on professional development as a budget saving measure for this coming school year. So one of the things that our department is doing in order to alleviate that is we are actually offering 2 letters sessions over the course of the summer. And any of our teachers who would like to sign up to participate in those are able to do so. We are going to encourage our new teachers to do that as well if they would like to. And they can, of course, do that for graduate credit. We offer that, or we offer recertification credit for teachers. So we try to make it a real positive for them to want to participate in that. And then we'll play it year by year. We'll continue our robust summer PD schedule that we have, and we'll kind of play it out and see where things are at in another year as far as the ability to provide professional development in a greater capacity beyond the summer. I have a feeling that our summer training opportunities for our teachers, I think we have a lot that'll take advantage of that. We also have built in that all special ed, we tend to have a lot of new teachers who come into special education every year. And so we always plan that they all need to go through the training as well. And so we'll figure out how that will look beyond next year.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
So letters must be one of the most professional development, teacher substitute intense things that we do in the district.
Yes.
And you had indicated that, you know, you would be concerned about cuts, and you've already started to program, you know, this as a cut. Can you talk a little more about the impact to our district based on a reduction, the reduced scheduling that you're going to have available for professional development and letters?
Well, you know, we hope by providing it during the summer that we will alleviate some of the impact. We're firm believers. I mean, we firmly believe that teachers make a difference in student achievement for kids. There's just no doubt in our mind that that's the key. With the budget cuts, of course, you know, we're going to provide that opportunity through this summer. And we have, as far as, in my opinion, we have, as of right now, all of our K-3 teachers trained. And of course, we may see some movement there with retirements or people shifting to new positions. But the majority of our teachers in the critical areas of learning, those early stages of learning, have been trained. And my hope is that we'll be able to sustain this for a year or so and then review it and see what we need to do. We might possibly find that summer training is something that teachers prefer over missing time out of the classroom, because that's also a critical concern that we have. That's lost instructional time when you do put a substitute in the classroom. So we have to find the happy medium and balance it so that it's a benefit to the district and not necessarily a burden. And I think this next year will give us a good understanding of where we're at with it, following not doing it during the school year for a year.
What demographic do you suspect will be most impacted?
Well, that's a tough question, and I could take a shot in the dark. I will always say that students with disabilities, because students with disabilities tend to have the most challenging reading difficulties. And so depending on how many new special education teachers we have, we'll see how that looks. One thing, though, that our department is always very sensitive to and ensuring is that we provide coaching within the classroom. And so we are out in the classroom. My specialists are on a regular basis to help support our special education teachers who need that support. And we'll be more hypersensitive to that this year in ensuring that we're getting them the support that they need in order to teach in the classroom. Students with disabilities is one area. Within that, then, we always can look at other subgroup data, students in poverty, which in many cases fits our students with disabilities category. They tend to have multiple areas of need.
Well, I appreciate your making lemonade out of lemons. I hope Dr. Tate will use some discernment in leaving this on the table as a potential cut, because I think I think this is a group of people that we need to work with most desperately, who need our help. And the effort put in here is going to save us money down the road.
Thank you.
The moratorium on training came before the budget cuts, actually. We've had 3 or 4 years of data teams, letters, 95% group, Dr. Adams. We have pulled people out of the classroom that we finally said, we need to take a break. And the challenge is, okay, we still have people we need to train. We need to make sure new people are ready to go. And the challenge is summer, afternoons, evenings, Saturdays, whatever we can get. So we just got to see how it works. But just so you know, it didn't start out with, oh my gosh, we need to cut. Where do we get it? It was, we need a break. We need to keep teachers in the classroom and see how it goes. So there's a fine line, there's a balance, and we're going to work very hard to make that happen.
Thank you.
Director Crumwoody.
Well, that leads me to a couple other thoughts. If teachers want to come to the training this summer, but perhaps have a conflict, isn't that training also available at the AEA?
Not at this time. No, it's not. They don't have a training cadre and of trainers so that they're able to provide it. So as of right now, it's just available within the district.
Okay. Okay. The other thing I was thinking of, which is a positive thought related to all of our retiring people. I think one of the real pluses that we have, and I know that's happening right now, we have a number of retired teachers who are subbing in the buildings who have letters training. And I think that that's going to continue to happen because we have a number of people going out and they're already trained in letters, which is a real plus for us.
Director Dickman.
Just wanted to say thank you. I'm sure this is not your first choice of places to be on your Monday night, but I really appreciate you keeping us informed on what's going on in the district. And then also it goes into our meeting minutes, and hopefully that information gets out into the community. I had the opportunity to see a teacher who received this training, and the principal was telling me about it, and just the level of excitement was it was clear that it had made a real impact, and it looks like it's doing its job, and so thank you for spending your time to keep us informed.
Absolutely. I will say though, Dr. Tate was a tough act to follow. I'm just going to put that out there.
And Dr. Tate, thank you for your time keeping us informed.
Any additional discussion? Did you have something? Oh, Superintendent Tate.
I would just like to say thank you to Patty Pace Tracy and her department. It is highly unusual for a special education department to take leadership in something which cuts across the entire district. In fact, it is absolutely unheard of. And they are leaders to drag us along to what we should be doing for reading. They are the instructors. They are the ones who are providing leadership to some of our wraparound programs. So again, I appreciate the fact that you're stepping out of what you are supposed to do and just helping us in the district. And I appreciate your leadership, all three of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very
All
much
right,
for
thank
leading
you.
us in that discussion.
You bet.
It's been a couple of hours, and I'm feeling particularly generous tonight, and so, well, I don't know, Director Defoe, it looks like quite a discussion on the policy. Do you think it's going to go short or long?
I think that depends on Director Kluhl's issue that he takes with administrative regulations.
Well, what is your recommendation with respect to taking a 7-minute recess?
Given the fact that we have about 20 policies to discuss, plus the book, I would recommend that we take a brief break.
Okay, great.
As much as Bennett and I would like to be out of here by 9.
Yep. Well, and I still have a lot of confidence that we can be out of here by 9. I'm depending on all of us. But go ahead and take a 7-minute recess. Director DeFau, would you lead us in the discussion on policy?
Certainly. As mentioned, there are several policies that are up for discussion this evening. And I'm just going to move through them one at a time and ask for comment or feedback as we proceed. So the first policy is 70201, selection of an architect, engineer, CMA, and we'll take questions or comments. I know Director Snyder has something already, so.
Why don't you lead the discussion?
Director Snyder?
On the first one, on the first one, on number 2, it says all projects with a total estimate over, or total cost estimate over $3 million will require an administration-led committee to select an architect, engineer, or construction manager, and construction manager, excuse me. In the policy meeting, we had talked about this briefly. This was a couple months ago, and actually I was given the assignment to rewrite something, and by the time it came around to the next one, I had forgotten what I was supposed to rewrite, so I didn't do it. So when we had this discussion at the last policy meeting, it was in there that I was supposed to rewrite paragraph 3, but over the weekend I found it was actually paragraph 2, not rewrite it, but jot down the notes of stuff we had discussed. And I do remember we had talked about, we had set a $3 million mark as kind of like the plateau where we will have that committee. And we had discussed at the meeting also that there may be instances where we want that same committee on a project that costs less. If it's, less major equipment, but maybe still fairly intense as far as a project. And my question, and he's not here, is what does an average geothermal system cost? So are we going to put a committee together for every geothermal system we put into a building? So I'm thinking $3 million, instead of saying will require, I'm thinking we would be better off just saying all projects with a total cost estimate. Or I don't even know if we need to put a dollar sign to it. Maybe instead of will require, say may utilize an administration-led committee. But I guess this is something where we need to go back to the policy committee and relook at this. And I apologize that I didn't write the stuff down. And then we had skipped a policy meeting for a board election. And so anyway, that's where we're at. But I think that's worth some discussion as far as I just don't know how well it would work to put a dollar figure on it, because if there's not a lot of large equipment to be purchased, we may not be at a certain dollar amount, but yet it still be wise to have a committee. So.
And I'm sorry.
And it basically it would be left up to administration to decide if they want to utilize that or not.
Director Johansson.
So a couple of things. I would estimate that the average cost of a geothermal system, from my recollection, is probably something over $2 million, but most likely under $3 million. The $3 million I got from Mr. Maloney as a kind of a break point. Most of our projects are well below that, and there are times where you would want that administration-led committee, but it's been very rare that we've had one. And I think the last that I know of was the Central Pool and Auditorium, where they had an administration-led committee. But I think changing the word will to may is probably fine, and I believe Mr. Maloney has actually looked at the language and generally agreed with it. But the policy committee can send it out again.
I just know that the committees are time-consuming on behalf of everybody involved, and, you know, certainly we want to utilize them if we need to, but yet we don't, just because it's at $3 million. You know, it may not really call for a committee, but now because we have a policy that says we have to, they have to. So I guess that was my concern. And next time I'll do my homework.
Any other comments? Okay, if not, we'll proceed to 60405, health education, which was reviewed by Brad Oates, and there were no recommended changes to the policy. And if there's nothing, I will continue until I'm stopped. So, 60506, internet appropriate use. And it's unfortunate that our student board members are gone, because in the policy committee meeting the other day, in response to the recommendations that were provided to us by email from student board member Bennett Robertson, and in addition, knowing that the superintendent had convened a group of students to give input at one point in the recent past, it occurred to me that this may be a policy where we'd like to get some student board member input. And so that was the recommendation, knowing that, you know, we're on the threshold of March, mid-March, and that time is going to be of the essence. I think that's how we would like to proceed. So we kind of left this as is without any other discussion than what was, and any revision other than what Gary had provided to us already. So maybe Director Johansson.
So one of the things also that since then, I've had an opportunity to talk with some teacher leadership, and they're very concerned about this policy. And I thought there might be consideration by the committee to get some of their input as well.
I think that's a good recommendation. So look for that to come back sometime in the future, perhaps not the near future. Policy 70101, school facility studies. You'll see that there was a significant amount of language stricken from this policy, which was language that was a hangover from the desegregation plan, which no longer is in place, and was replaced by the diversity plan. So that's primarily the rationale for the paragraph being taken out. Policy 60406, music lessons. Again, this is a policy that has kind of been with the committee for a while. And in original discussion, Director Sherwood felt very strongly that there should be some language in there that would allow for teachers to not just present children with the opportunity in the classroom, but to also take that a step further and to really encourage students who may, for one reason or another, not feel like they have the ability or opportunity to participate in music, knowing that what a hook that is, and how much of an influence that can be on a student's engagement in the classroom and in school in general. So we did our best to massage that in his spirit, and in light of what we thought were to be some suggested budget cuts, felt it was important for us as a board to make a statement that we believe that music education is a critical component of instruction in the district. 60512, career education. There were no recommended changes by our curriculum department. And this is language from Iowa Code. 70501, procedure and bond elections. After Mrs. Tangen reviewed it, she noted that we should have included the word if in item 2. And other than that, there were no recommended changes. 70302, site acquisition, again was reviewed by Mrs. Tangen, and there was one small change in language, trying to tighten that up and not give a list of who could be contracted to provide assistance, but that a qualified third party may. 80101, board committees. This was changed given the fact that the policy committee now consists of 4 board members and is obligated to comply with open meeting laws. So that was the change that we made in that policy. And 80201, compensation for expenses, again relevant to board members, that we may be reimbursed for expenses incurred in the performance of our duties. 80202, travel by board members. Again, no recommended changes in this policy. And we did have some conversation, again, I think it was Director Sherwood who, in reviewing this policy, had remarked that we should really encourage board members to take advantage of professional development opportunities and to, avail ourselves of learning when we can. So far as I think he wanted to perhaps maybe even have funds available that would encourage people to do that. But in discussion with the board or the policy committee, we decided not to make that recommendation, and President Johansson.
Yeah, thank you. He did request to attend certain training, and he did encourage other members of the board to participate in training. However, we, the board, really haven't looked at the board budget. Mm-hmm. And I'm sensitive to that, and that will be brought to the board before too long. But I'm also sensitive to comments by the superintendent when he says we're spending money like drunken sailors. And and so I do want to be careful a little bit, but I just wanted to advise the whole board there is a board budget that most of you have never seen, and that we'll look at that, and maybe in the future we can allocate some of that for training or travel. So
Okay. Thank you for those comments. 80205, Board of Directors self-evaluation, and we did not make any range or changes to that policy. 80303, administrative rules and regulations. Again, just a modest addition to that that policy, cognizant of the fact that the board really has no control over administrative rules or regulations, that we simply establish policy, and it is then the administration's job to establish those rules and regulations and to make sure that they're enforced. 80304, membership in state and national organizations. Again, just some language cleanup there. Sorry, I lost my cursor there a minute. And 90101, the name of the school district, with no recommended changes. Not this week. 90102, legal status of the board, which is from Iowa Code. 90103, powers and responsibilities of the board. And 90104, members of the board. I think I might recommend that name change, but number of members is what it's currently referenced. 90105, filling vacancies for directors and officers of the board. Oh, and then lastly, 401.26, which is the activity athletic passes, which was previously known as the Golden Pass policy. And was someone, did you ask somebody to speak to that? Okay. Okay. In essence, why this was brought up with a request for our consideration is the fact that a gold pass is given to employees on their time of retirement, and that those are presented at the retirement dinner each year, and that it has been an awkward circumstance in the past when someone with service in excess of 10 years receives a gold pass, and then the next person in line has less than 10 years and does not, and someone in the line says, "Where's your gold pass?" which I think has occurred. And so what the suggestion is that we remove the year stipulation, and that all retirees would be given a gold pass at the time of their retirement. So that was brought to us with a request for consideration, and I put that out for comment or feedback now or prior to the next policy committee meeting, which will be the first Wednesday in April. So, okay, well, we will, if there are no comments, we'll take that under advisement at the next policy committee meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Dickman.
I was just curious, what, is there a lot of revenue that we would be we're leaving on the table with these, or are that symbolic more than?
I can only speak from personal experience, having staffed many high school events, and I would say on average in a 3-day event, such as a theatrical production, that we may have less than 5 individuals present a gold pass for admission with a guest, so, I think in my estimation, it hasn't been inordinately, revenue impacting.
I was just curious.
Mm-hmm. I'm not certain about athletics. I think probably athletics may have greater access. Anybody? Director Johansson?
Yeah, I guess when I look at it and I think about how much we value our employees, and it seems to me to be kind of a minor acknowledgement of their service. I haven't thought a lot about whether you go 10 years or less or more, but I would imagine that even with athletics, the loss of revenue is probably not even a footnote on our budget. So
yeah, and I'm not certain if that's even tracked, like at the Brady Street ticket window, how many people would come in using a pass versus, paying, or even like a senior citizen pass, which also would allow for free admission to athletic events. Director Snyder.
I don't think it would be a lot, and in working for things like plays and musicals, like Director DeFau said, in a weekend, you run across a few, and that's about it. And I can't speak for the athletics, but, with those passes, I would actually hope, because that's the first thing I thought of too, is are we robbing these music departments and stuff of some money that they need to pay for these productions? but in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't amount to much. And in fact, I would hope that more people would come out because they have those passes, and continue to stay in touch with the district and the kids. And because I know the ones that do show up, the kids really love seeing them. So I would hope they use them more.
Director Cluel.
Director Crumwoody brought up that there was a Senate file, I believe, which proposed that school boards, in regards to 901.05 filling vacancies, would not be allowed to select but would have to hold an election. Do you know, did that pass the funnel? Do you know?
No, we had the very same conversation in the policy committee because I thought it might be premature to review the policy given the fact that it was, pending or for consideration. And I do not believe that it did pass through the funnel. So, and we thought we'd rather put it on the agenda and have the opportunity to discuss it than let it wait and come back to it. Well, if there's nothing else, then those are the policies for this evening.
Super. Thanks a lot for leading us in that discussion. Next up is discussion of Dr. Beagle's book, and Director Crumwoody, are you prepared to lead that discussion?
I am most prepared.
Okay, thank you.
It all goes back to our second priority that we have as a board to direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, our families, and our community. And last week, the Poverty Committee subcommittees made a presentation to the board and made some recommendations, which some of those recommendations came forward tonight during open forum. The first one being transportation, the second one being early childhood, and the third recommendation had to do with staff training, professional development related to poverty issues, dealing with families of poverty. And so you heard from those three subcommittees. Director Sherwood and myself, we were the two members, or we've been the two members on the Poverty Committee, and I've assumed that leadership role since Director Sherwood passed. And prior to that, we had talked about, both he and I attended Dr. Beagle's training last September, and it was pretty overwhelming. Anyway, we both purchased the book, and we talked about purchasing the book for all the board. And if we purchase the book, again, thanks to Dr. Tate, if we purchase the book, we don't want to just hand it out and not use it. Because if we're really serious about our priority, we need to talk about it. And so what we need to think about is how we're going to use the book. But let me talk about some of the other actions. I did present this last week also. One of the actions, of course, is the book and how we're going to use that book. The other one is navigator training. Now, I know all of us can't participate. I believe there's 4 of us that are going to participate in that training, which is tomorrow. It's a half-day training. And hopefully we'll be able to report back to the board about that training and our learning with that. The policy committee, you folks are probably going to have some work to do because we need to be looking at our policies and what are policies that impact poverty. And I had the opportunity today to meet with Dr. Tate and administration and the people that presented last week. And there are going to be some recommendations made to the board as far as policies and what policies we need to start looking at that we need to deal with first. And also, then we need to take some actions as a board. It's not just a matter of studying and learning, but we need to probably take some actions. So those are the things that we need to do. Now, going back to Dr. Beagle's book, one of the things that I've talked to Dr. Tate about is using that book at every board meeting and having the agenda committee come up with time, a chunk of time, to have conversations about the contents of that book and some of the recommendations and thoughts that Dr. Beagle has. I think that we could do that, and I've had some conversations with some of you. Linda has offered to even take the first chapter. She said she was ready to go tonight, but we wanted to run it by the board first and the agenda committee to see if you thought we could do this at every board meeting. I think it makes sense to try to get through it as quickly as possible and not spread it out over months and months, because some of us won't be here for months and months. So I think it would be good to try to get this accomplished as quickly as possible. So the recommendation is to give it to the agenda committee, come up with a schedule, and decide how we're going to use this book and go from there. So that's my recommendation, and I guess I open it up for discussion. And how comfortable are you with doing that each meeting?
Will there be a test?
There will be a test. Yes. Linda's preparing it. Oh, and by the way, Linda has graciously offered to be our new member on the Poverty Committee. And she will be also going to the training tomorrow. Thoughts?
I'm sad I'll be missing the training tomorrow, but life does not allow for us all to understand. But right before the meeting, we had discussed potential schedules and allotting an extra half an hour before the meeting. And I would be willing and happy to make that work, to try to allot a half an hour of time before our regular meetings, to have a good discussion about a chapter. Someone else would have to do the math for me, but if we did a chapter before each regular meeting, I believe we would be finished before some of our members leave us.
We would be. Mm-hmm. Nikki?
I hadn't heard that option surfaced about, and I guess my only concern regarding that is that we already use that time quite regularly to hold special call meetings or, sometimes, unfortunately, expulsion hearings, other there are many things that require board business, and we've been fairly routinely using that time before regular meetings. So, in fact, this is the first meeting that I can think of in quite some time where we haven't had a preliminary meeting prior to the regular board meeting. Not saying that I think it's a bad idea, quite the contrary. I think it's appropriate to find a way to be planful and to incorporate it into our conversations, because otherwise, as you said, we just don't want to get a book and sit it on the shelf. My other question is, though, how will this information be reintroduced to new board members, especially considering that you want to have a conversation now that may end midsummer, and we may have, or we will have 3 new board members, potentially 2 to 3 new board members.
Maybe 4.
And that learning, well, I'm counting on 2 people being back.
Are you running again?
No, though tonight I will say is the first time that I have been, after Dr. Tate's comments, it's like, ugh. Anyway.
You know what? Didn't I just say that to you, Vera? It's like, it almost made me want to run again.
I was going to say that. Be that as it may.
Sorry, interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But, you know, I hearken back to when you joined the board and how you felt like you were left out of the loop. So I think that, again, there'll have to be something planful in the fall to make sure that, you know, people who are coming in feel a part of that and have the ownership of those conversations. And I'm very glad that Linda is joining the committee because, you know, as in with the policy committee, we were talking about, you know, transitions and making sure that there were people in place to continue our work. You know, so too, you know, we need a board member that's able to do that. So I'm glad that that's occurring. Very glad. Not just for that reason, but for that one most especially.
I appreciate that concern for new people. And because I'm always concerned, and that's why I asked the question tonight about new staff with letters training. I'm always concerned about that because we do things, and sometimes are we thinking about new people coming on? And I would make this offer. I would come back, and if the board wanted to have a session for new board members, I would be more than happy to come back and assist with that. Other thoughts?
So, when I think about a half an hour, it seems like a lot of time to me. And maybe we start at a half an hour, maybe we modify it. I don't know. I haven't read any yet because I wanted to see what our discussion was. You've read the whole book, right?
I scanned it.
Okay. And I suppose a half an hour is, would you limit, and I guess you would if it happened to occur before a meeting, you would limit the amount of time.
Yeah, I think we would. And we were just talking before the meeting that perhaps half an hour before, but it doesn't have to be half an hour. That's why I wanted to leave it up to the agenda committee. You know, do we leave it at the end of the meeting as a discussion item at the end of the meeting and build in 15, 20 minutes? But then we're all pretty tired at the end of the meeting. And I also think by having those conversations early in the meeting, it will better help the public to understand what we're talking about and what we're doing as a board with this whole poverty issue.
Yeah, and yeah, I think the end of the evening is just not a good plan. I don't think that we're at our freshest at that time. What I might suggest as an alternative, given the importance of the conversation, is that we might eliminate a presentation from the early part of the agenda and only have a showcase. You know, there are some evenings when it's the better part of an hour before we've started the routine business of our meeting because of presentations and showcases on the same night. And I think you could make the case that while presentations are valuable, they probably don't trump this conversation.
Linda?
In going through the book, I went quite a ways into it, but there's actually only 3 chapters in the book.
There's 3, right.
But there's subcategories in those chapters, which may be 5-6 pages long, so it's not very long at all.
Thank you for that. I think one of the things, you know, we originally talked about each one of us taking a chapter. A couple of people could take a chapter and decide what are the important points. I mean, we don't have to cover everything that's in those chapters, but what are the important points for us? Because it's our learning. And I think the people that are doing the chapter can decide that. And I think with 3 chapters, we could knock it out 3 sessions. But I like your idea about during the showcase time.
You know, I just wanted to commend you and Bill and the whole poverty committee. We've had this discussion about being a learning board. We've had discussions about doing some book studies. I know Bill has pushed and pushed and pushed. And it's too bad that he isn't here to see us actually getting into it. But I wanted to thank you and I wanted to thank Bill posthumously, I'm not sure exactly the correct word, but for his leadership and energy in getting us there. But thanks again.
Other thoughts? So does the agenda committee have enough information?
Yep.
Okay. That's all I have. And I would also suggest that perhaps in the agenda for next time you build in, it doesn't have to be a very long time, Linda and I can report back as to what our learning was at Navigator, or any of us that are attending.
Great, thank you.
You don't have to be on the committee to
No.
report, yeah.
Great.
You can do that.
Okay. Thank you for that discussion. We'll move on. Administrative reports, Superintendent Tate.
None, Mr. President.
Great. Are there any board reports? I've got 3 requests here. Any other board reports? Director Snyder.
I just wanted to offer my condolences to the Shorter family in Davenport. This past week on Tuesday, March 3rd, we lost a Wood 6th grader, Alasia Shorter. She had a battle with cancer and actually was doing pretty well with that, but her body in its weakened condition just wasn't able to continue the fight, and she had some heart issues. And I know in speaking with a lot of her friends on Friday night, they were pretty devastated. And so my condolences to her family. I can't think of anything worse than losing a child.
Thank you. Any additional reports? Director Crumwitty.
I would also like to, on behalf of the board, express our condolences to the family of Sister Michelle Shifkins. Sister Michelle Shifkins has done a lot of work in the Davenport School District over the years. And she was an educational consultant to the curriculum department for a number of years here. She also helped develop the first professional development school in the Davenport school system, and which was quite unique. There was only like 10 across the entire country, and we were the only ones in Iowa to have that. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to express our sympathy to the family of Sister Michelle and also to the Sisters of Humility.
Thank you. Any additional reports? All right, we'll move on to requests. First is a request from board member Director Kluhl. Date is March 15th. An agenda item, request presentation from early childhood on the impacts that would come from eliminating the 0 to 2 program. For example, how many children are impacted? 2, what are the options for parents with YMCA and other providers? This request is intended to clarify why administration believes this is the best course of action for the district. Next is from Director Snyder. Date of the request 3/9/15, agenda item, that we move board reports to the first half of the meeting. By the time we get to share some of our reports, everyone is gone, and there is nobody left to report to, leaving our report somewhat meaningless. board request from Director Snyder, date 3/9/15, agenda item. I'd like to have a discussion on what athletics mean to our students and to us as a district, and put a committee together to focus on how we can become more successful on the playing field and courts and classroom, and in turn, the classroom. Thank you for those. Looks like we're ready to adjourn. I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
You-